So I will admit that upon watching the finale of Captain America and the Winter Soldier a second time, I might have been a little harsh last week. Do you think I might have been going a bit over the top with my fanboy rage? Or...
I mean, a little bit. You were definitely intense about it. I think, especially because you said you didn't hate it, you were disappointed. So, but when you're passionate about something, it's hard not to be like that.
And I really didn't want to be passionate about that, but I guess, I got caught up in the whole, I was just passionate about characters that I might have projected onto, but also characters that they just wrote very poorly at the end because they knew, we got to make this person a real bad guy. If I were to say my words again in a more succinct way, I will say that, I just think it's bullshit that they gave the toxic white guy redemption and didn't give it to the justified black girl. That's the biggest thing I hate about it. It didn't even end with John Walker in therapy. Bucky goes to therapy, but John Walker, kills a man in cold blood. All of a sudden gets stripped of all of his ranks and titles, and he's just like, hey, they can give me a costume and I'm good.
Well, my brother, who is not an avid comic book reader, I'd consider him more of a liberal than like a real true leftist, But even he texted me and was like, so Bucky's just best friends with John Walker now?
Thank you.
He was like, what the fuck was that? And I was like, I know. He was like, that made no sense. I was like, I agree. Like, out of nowhere, he just texted me about that. He was like, it was weird. And I was like, yeah.
Wasn't it last episode that Bucky was whooping his ass and said, we want to do this?
Yes! Yeah.
The ire and hate for which he had for John Walker was palpable.
Sam was like, do we? And he's like, oh, we do. We fucking do. We want to beat his ass.
Yeah, exactly.
Take that shield back. And now he's like, you know what? We're cool, man. We're real cool.
I do feel a little bit better about Sam and just, him being the guy who wants to talk things out. Like, I'm all about that.
Yeah, me too.
Captain America makes speeches, like that's his thing, and he did that at the end of the episode. And I thought that was great too. I will double down a little bit on the costume, just because I think the difference is they're not at the point where they give him a CGI costume yet, and he had to have a physical costume over his already very muscular person.
Yeah.
And, if you look back at the older MCU stuff, like, even 2012 and earlier, you're kind of like, oh yeah, I guess these costumes are a little rough. And then they have Tom Holland in the CGI suit for Spider-Man, and you're like, oh, that's great. And you have Black Panther in the CGI you have Chadwick Boseman in the CGI suit for Black Panther. Or rather, you have Black Panther in the CGI suit so he could play Chadwick Boseman. Who knows how they go? Yeah, who knows where they go from here?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, the masks in general aren't always that strong. Like, I think the Captain America mask never really worked, right? Like, Steve Rogers always looks a little
And that's why they took it off of him every opportunity they had.
That's why he didn't even wear one in Infinity War, right? He was like, fuck this.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He didn't have he was like, I'm Steve Rogers.
I got a goddamn beard instead, so.
He's got those luscious locks and that beard. On my part, I want to say that I'm sorry I failed to mention that the man that Bucky goes to make amends, it's in the book. His name is Mr. Nakajima, and we also failed to mention the Tuskegee experiments, which I might have mentioned in the mini reviews earlier, but for those of you who aren't aware, the experimentation that was done on Isaiah Bradley and all of his brothers in arms is a direct, I don't even want to say allegory, reference, whatever you want to call it. It's a callback to the United States' actual history with black bodies and the way in which they experimented on them. So yes, obviously that is all stuff we're aware of. And you know what? I mentioned it in our second Lovecraft review, I think, or even the first one. So I know it, but for those of you who are just getting into our podcast because of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier reviews, hold on to your butts. It's going to be a really steep drop from here. But go back to the older stuff like Lovecraft and Watchmen. It's a good time.
Well, we spent about as much time on Mr. Nakajima as that episode did, so I don't feel as bad.
I think we spent a little more, to be frank.
Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, so that's my 2 cents. I might have been a little tough on this last episode, but there are some aspects of it which I believe I am completely justified in. And if I remember, I'll put it in the show notes and sources. There was actually a TikTok video that a friend of the podcast sent to me about how the Flag Smashers are actually all lives matter people. And that their one world, one people thing is a result of them feeling marginalized because the people who were blipped, the real victims, are being helped, and now the Flag Smashers feel that they've been left behind. And
But I thought the people that were blipped weren't being helped. That's why they're in refugee camps.
I think it was the people who were blipped came back to find other people living in their homes. Like, that's what the GRC guy said. So I think he's more upset at those who... I think he's trying to help... They're trying to help the people who were blipped and not those who are displaced by the returning.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought it was the people couldn't return to their homes. Now they've been gone, so they've been put into camps, and they're not really getting any kind of assistance. But I could be wrong. I don't know. We'll have to look into it. Maybe somebody can tweet it out to us. I don't know. Or email the podcast. I don't know. I didn't pay that much attention. I stand by everything I said in our review. In fact, I doubled down on it. I mentioned what I enjoyed in that episode, but overall I was pretty...
And with that, Ty, would you like to take a guess as to how many new reviews we have this week?
I'm going to say between -1 and 0.
Just a little above -1. It is 0, as a matter of fact. But if any of you want your podcast, if any of you want your reviews read at the top of the show, at the top of the podcast, all you have to do is go to Apple Podcasts, subscribe, rate, and review. Please leave us a 5-star review if you find it in your heart to do so. Although a few of them have been 5-star reviews. They've kind of been negging us, actually. Like 5-star reviews with critiques, which I'm 100% fine with. That is absolutely okay. But with that, Ty, you ready to bring in that theme song?
Let's bring it on in.
Welcome to our April 2021 edition of Housekeeping, presented by the Politipop Podcast, the podcast where we read between the lines of our favorite pop culture media and discuss the social and political themes within. I am your co-host, Mike Booch, a.k.a. the Soy Boy Pseudo-Intellectual, and as always in the co-host seat is my man Ty.
Hello, hello.
All right. Now, for those of you who are new to this, our housekeeping episodes don't actually have to do with pop culture or any sort of reviews of movies or books or anything else that we normally do or are known for. These are just kind of us getting stuff off of our chests.
It's us reviewing the world.
It is reviewing the world. And honestly, spoiler alert, people, 1 star out of 5.
Yeah.
I'll say
if even a full star. I don't know.
I wouldn't even give it 50 stars. Okay, I'll tell you that right now. No stars, no stripes. But yeah, so we're just going to go through different current events. And honestly, a lot of this is stuff that we've been holding on to a bit. I'll say for me, some of this isn't even current stuff. I mean, it is, but for those of you in the news cycle, it's probably old. And, when this comes out, on Friday, it'll probably be old to you as well. So. But with that, we are going to start off with our first story of the night. The first thing we want to talk about is the trial and the verdict of one Derek Chauvin. Derek Chauvin, for those of you who aren't aware, he's the, I don't want to say man, I don't want to say officer. He's the murderer of George Floyd. He knelt on the man's neck for 8 minutes, 46 seconds in 2020, and his entire defense for this case included, okay, guys, but what if he just happened to die while that was happening and had nothing to do with our client? Nothing to do with the defendant.
It's like so wild to me. Like, even if this guy really believed that he had to subdue him, right? Like, if Chauvin's like, I gotta subdue this guy because, he could hurt me. So he knelt on him, right? If I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't George Floyd pass out about halfway through, and he still continued to kneel on him? So it's like, at that point, like, what? Why? You know what I mean? What other reason other than you just didn't give a fuck if this guy lived or died would be your reasoning for doing that? There just really isn't one.
I think I recall the brave young man, and I want to say young man, I'm pretty sure he's under 18, the boy who filmed this whole thing without that video, without a boy holding his camera up to a bunch of cops who could take him down at any moment. Without that, we wouldn't have this verdict. We would not have the video that is so clearly a murder, an execution, and yet still there was a trial that needed to be held, which shows once again that the United States will always, always, always give the white person the benefit of the doubt. And for those of you who may be saying, I don't think so always, we'll go through the rest of our podcast. and you can tell me, but the slight, I would call it a silver lining, but it's been followed up by so much shit it doesn't even matter. But the silver lining is that Chauvin's the verdict was that he was found guilty on all charges, I believe, right?
Yeah, 2nd-degree murder, 3rd-degree murder, and 2nd-degree manslaughter. So, I mean, yeah, that's great. I honestly wasn't expecting him to be found guilty on all charges. So it's good, but he faces up to 40 years, I believe, is the max, and as little as like 10. So we don't know yet what his sentence is going to be. And a lot of people are celebrating this and they're really excited and they're calling this victory. Nancy Pelosi thanked George Floyd for his sacrifice.
That fucking twat. Sorry,
which is
that
just
pissed me off so much.
It's so disgusting. Like I'm pretty sure George Floyd's intention was not to die that day. But thanks Pelosi for that comment. But I do want to tell people, hold your feelings in a little bit, because this doesn't necessarily mean justice. We don't know what his sentence is going to be. It clearly has not stopped police shootings, as we're going to get into in a little bit. To me, this kind of felt like Chauvin was chosen to kind of be the sacrificial lamb
sacrificial pig, yes. Sorry, just wanted to throw that in there.
Yes, that's good. I like that. To the sacrificial pig to prevent further rioting. We're in by the time this airs, I believe it'll be May, right? May 1st, or the last day of April.
I think it'll be April 30th. Yeah.
Okay, so we're heading towards the summer and things are getting warmer, and that's last year it's when we had mass protests in the streets, and it could very well happen again. Right, that's something that could definitely occur this summer, and I know they know
that
this.
People are getting vaccinated too.
Yeah, I mean it's even more of an incentive.
I think it's going to happen.
I think it will too, but they're obviously going to try to prevent this as much as possible, and I think they knew if Chauvin was not found guilty, that this would really erupt right now, and. I think they had like the police commissioner testify against him, the training officer that trained Chauvin. Like all these people kind of came out uncharacteristically and really came to the trial and spoke out against him. So for me, it felt very much like this was pre-planned, that he was going to take the fall for this. And if that is true, it concerns me that his sentence could be a lot lower than we're hoping for. Maybe they were like, listen, you're gonna get found guilty, and then you'll get like 10 years, and then you'll get off with good behavior and less. But maybe I'll be surprised. Maybe he'll get 40 years, and that would be great. But this isn't. I wouldn't call it quite justice yet, and it shouldn't be so surprising, right? It's like the reason that we're so shocked by this is kind of disgusting. This should have been a no-brainer. It was on camera. Like it shouldn't be like a surprising verdict, but unfortunately it is, because the percentage of police officers that are found guilty is so ridiculously low. There's only been, I think, like a handful, like 15 police officers, let's say, in the last, I don't know how many years, that have actually been found guilty of something like this. So it's pretty wild that people are so excited about this when it should have been, again, a no-brainer.
I think that, similar to what you were saying, we've really been conditioned to just accept the bare minimum. I think also that this is a very calculated, I don't want to say smart, but it is definitely a calculated move on the part of the state. They have actually moved his sentencing hearing back to June 25th, probably in light of all of the continued killing and maiming of black people at the hands of not just the police, but also just white folks who think they have authority in general. And it's weird to say that because it's not like this is something new. It's just that it's being recorded more often. Like, imagine, we've said it before. We used to associate with somebody who was definitely a rapist. Now that we're looking back on it, and we always said, imagine the stuff he didn't tell us. So imagine the stuff that doesn't get caught on camera. That these cops still feel so entitled and comfortable in acting the way they act in this climate blows my mind. I mean, I don't know if anyone were like, hey, we're, podcasters have been murdering people at a wild rate this year. I would take a step back and be like, all right, how am I podcasting here? Let me, let me be more peaceful. And like, oh, man, but yeah, the other thing I think, we see that not only was the sentencing moved back, but also that Minneapolis has started preparing the city for like a siege, showing that they are not probably looking, they're not planning on a verdict or a decision that's going to be, 40 years. Like, I definitely don't think it's going to be the max sentencing.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. So that's just something to keep in mind. I think also that when the next protests do begin this summer for whatever happens next or whatever has happened within this past month, that it's going to be the state, you could say President Biden, you could say Minneapolis specifically, or whatever mayors of whatever states or, cities are having trouble, quote unquote, are being sieged by protesters trying to seek justice. Because once again, this isn't justice, this is accountability. Let's not get too carried away with ourselves here. I think that it'll be easy for them to say, listen, we gave them what they wanted. This guy's in prison for 10 years, and they're still violent. They just want to be victims. They just want to, be angry, and they're thugs, and they're savages, and they deserve whatever we send to them in the form of the National Guard or whatever it's going to be.
Well, this is exactly what's happening. I mean, I think that the Biden administration has even said they're kind of turning around on their idea of police reform because of the Derek Chauvin verdict. So, they're already like, well, maybe we don't need to reform the police because, look, he was found guilty. And, Derek Chauvin going to prison does not fix this very corrupt, racist system, right? That's not going to fix it. It's not going to fix the problems with the police. It's not going to save, thousands of other black and brown Americans from being killed by the police. That's not the solution. This, again, like you said, it's accountability. It should be totally separate. They shouldn't even consider this, anything to do with police reform at all.
And speaking of those other black and brown people who have not been saved by this fucking verdict, do you want to tell us a little bit about Adam Toledo?
Yeah, so Adam Toledo was a 13-year-old child who was killed by police in Chicago. So there's I forget the name of the system, but spot shotter, and it's a system designed to recognize gunshots in the city, and it costs tons of money from the taxpayers. A lot of cities have stopped using it because they found it was not accurate and not helpful. But supposedly this system, recognized gunshots. So a police officer, was sent to the scene. I believe it was like 2:36 a.m. So it was middle of the night.
And by the way, in the show notes and sources, we will have a timeline from the Chicago Sun-Times in there. So, if you're listening to this, go to our show notes and sources and look at that as well. I'm actually going along with you as you tell me what happened.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Adam Toledo and 21-year-old Ruben Roman were walking down Sawyer Avenue, right? And that's when they were approached by the police officer, who was, I think, 34-year-old Officer Eric Stillman. And, Eric Stillman believed that they had a gun. So he chased after them. He wound up chasing after Adam. And supposedly, you can see in the body cam footage, Adam tosses something, I think, behind the dumpster or, behind the fence. And it may or may not have been a gun, right? Okay. And he turns around and he complies with all of the officer's orders. He puts his hands in the air, is clearly no longer armed.
hands, show me your fucking hands. Literally,
Yep.
the words you want to hear from a professional who's supposed to de-escalate conflict. That's exactly what you want to be hearing.
It is kind of wild that they can talk like that. Can you imagine? Like, I mean, I know you're not like working,
but no one in the
right
service.
now. Like,
I worked at
like,
Wendy's.
Yeah, like
if I
fries. It's like, give me your fucking groceries when I'm bringing somebody up, or like you want to fucking return that? Like, I can't do that.
There are specialty themed restaurants in parts of the country that you go there to get treated like shit at, because the service industry is supposed to be overwhelmingly nice and civil. And
even when you're a dick, like I've had some people who were cursing me out, super aggressive, and I have never ever cursed at a customer, and like. This dude.
You have pulled a gun on them, but you've never...
Yeah, I mean, that's accepted.
Listen, that's just the grocery business. What are you going to do?
That's right. And so he says, show me your fucking hands. And what does Adam do? He shows his hands, right? He holds them up in the air. He turns around. He's complying with the orders. And the officer shoots him in the chest. Shoots him in the chest once. And I believe he's like, are you okay? After he does it. And it's
asshole.
like, what do you think? You just fucking shot him, man.
Jesus.
And so basically, he killed him. He killed 13-year-old Adam Toledo, and I know a lot of people come out. Well, what's he doing out at 2:36 in the morning? What did he have a gun? Why was he hanging out with a 21-year-old? It does not matter. It does not matter why he was there. If he had a gun, this officer was not fighting for his life. Adam was listening. He was listening to the cops, and he turned around and he held his hands up, and he was still shot to death. So, we're going to discuss a couple stories where people have been listening to the cops and they've either been shot or attacked. And it makes you wonder, like, what's your best option? Is your best option to keep running? Is your best option to fight back? I don't know. I'm a white guy. Luckily I've never been in that situation, but I can only imagine if I was a black man and I was pulled over by the police or approached on the street, I'd be fucking terrified. Because even if I did what they asked, there's no reason they wouldn't kill me, right? That's kind of what I get out of this. And so now a 13-year-old is dead.
And I actually want to take this moment to talk about a Netflix short. It's a 30-minute short. If any of you haven't seen it, then please find it. Although I just canceled my own Netflix.
Really?
Yes. My own Netflix subscription just got to be too expensive for me. But anyway, there's a short they have called "Distance Between Two Strangers," and it's basically a Groundhog Day scenario in which a black man is, he wakes up from a one-night stand with this cute girl. He's gonna call her again. He seems to be a nice guy. Like Gen Z kid. And he's trying to get home to feed his dog, and he keeps getting fucking murdered by the police. And no matter what he tries, he keeps getting murdered. And that's it. Just watch it.
What's it called?
It's called Distance Between Two Strangers. So those of you who are listening, I mean, if you can handle it, I do. I want to apologize to the listeners because I feel like I would be a lot more on top of these killings and the details involved in them. But, I've just been dealing with a lot of my own stuff in my life, and it's been a lot. So just even taking in anything from the world is, I'm like a nerve right now. Like, I'm really sensitive to this stuff. So if you are in a similar position, maybe don't watch that yet, but for those of you who think you can handle it, definitely do. Now, your little bit about it doesn't matter, I actually want to follow up on that, but after we review all of these, and I don't mean to laugh during it, it's just I'm very uncomfortable, and I am flabbergasted by the sheer volume of what we've been seeing, especially in light. Like, it's like the mainstream media can't even keep it down. And that's what's so surprising. So kudos to everybody who has cell phones and, you're out there recording police and stuff. I want to go on to the Dante Wright shooting. I want to talk about the, I mean, obviously what happened, but the woman who shot him, because this article specifically mentions her training record. The service file of a former police officer charged in the fatal shooting of Dante Wright, a 20-year-old black motorist in Brooklyn Center this month, contains scarce details about her police training history. The files released to the Associated Press on Monday include former Brooklyn Center police officer Kim Potter's job application, letters of recognition, pay information, and a training status letter with most sections blacked out. The documents show Potter earned a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and underwent law enforcement skills training at Alexandria Technical College before joining the Brooklyn Center Police Department in February 1995. She completed training courses in policy and procedures, firearms, and felony stop procedures, in quotes, among others, less than 5 months later, according to the documents. Redacted sections in the training status letter include volunteer experience, financial history, driving record, and criminal history, among others. And criminal history? Okay. I mean, I worked at a nonprofit and we barely let anyone with a criminal history. Unless it was for one of our programs in which we were rehabilitating people who just got out of prison. If somebody had an issue with with their license, we were like, oh, we don't know if we can have you. Meanwhile, somebody with a criminal history can become a cop. I just find that interesting. Meanwhile, I'm not saying if she actually had a criminal history. I just find it weird that section's blacked out. I feel like you'd want to know. The classic conservative, well, if you have nothing to hide, then it shouldn't be a problem.
And criminal history doesn't necessarily mean a person doesn't deserve a second chance or a chance to work, right?
Well, yeah, I believe they deserve the chance to work, the opportunity to vote, and also, I think it's ridiculous that felons can't own guns either, but that's, that's a different story. But you're absolutely right, Ty. Now, do you want this woman in particular stopping you? I'm going to guess no. But
probably not.
Yeah, but just with that, I remember when you said, if you were a person of color, you would run as well. And
I didn't say I would run. I said I don't know what I would do. I said,
you don't know what you... Sorry,
I said maybe it's the best option. I don't know.
There are two options when you're faced with a life-threatening situation. There's fight or flight. And the fact of the matter is, there's something inherently wrong with this system that people of color see those lights and go into fight or flight mode. And It's not because black people are naturally fearful.
No.
Y'all think that they're natural predators, right? So, and by y'all, I mean, the powers that be, the government, the United States as a whole believes that. So it's definitely the way that you are treating people. Let me just get this part out here. Potter is charged with second-degree manslaughter in Wright's death. Brooklyn Center Police Chief Tim Gannon, who resigned in the wake of Wright's killing, said he believed Potter mistakenly fired her handgun instead of her taser. Her body camera video recorded Potter shouting, "Taser, taser," before she shot Wright. And, it seems they don't mention it in the rest of this, but shortly after she shot him, she says, "Oh, fuck!" Or, "Oh shit," I was bleeped out in the version I saw. But long story short, folks, I've made this mistake when I've been playing a new video game or a first-person shooter or something like that. This isn't the mistake that a 20-plus year veteran should be making. And, as everybody knows by this point, a taser and a Glock or 9mm, whatever they happen to use, their service pistol, is not the same weight or grip as a taser, and somebody with that experience should not be making that mistake.
It's also on your non-dominant side, right? Because you the way you draw. So just even the action of reaching to draw it would be different for a taser than a pistol.
Yeah, and that seems they said that they were arresting him for a warrant. I have heard mixed messages as to what the warrant was for exactly. They originally pulled him over for apparently expired plates. And I do want to let you know that when it does come to auto stuff, having worked in nonprofit and having run those background checks just regarding driving records and stuff, there are people who are like, yeah, I got this ticket and then I wasn't able to pay it. So then they put a warrant out for my arrest or whatever. And then I had to go to court and my license was expired. So I couldn't go to court. And literally these people just keep getting hit. It is 100% a fact that poor people continue to be punished for being poor and are then made more poor by the way the system works. So, you could be going to you could be driving to a job interview and then you get a speeding ticket on your way there or something. Like, I remember I went to a job interview and I got a $300+ ticket for parking in the wrong spot of Brooklyn and a boot on my car. Thank God I got the job. Like, and also I had some people to help me out with money at the time. A lot of people don't have that stuff, but I just want to let all y'all know in case you're wondering about your own privilege. We actually have an article here also saying that there's the Minnesota House is looking to once again Minnesota House is looking to change police arrest warrant procedures, which were prompted by the Dante Wright killing, meaning they would handle defendants with outstanding warrants for petty misdemeanors as sign and release. So that would mean that whatever Dante was murdered for, because that's what it was a petty misdemeanor. Okay,
Right.
So just everyone at home, think of the petty misdemeanors you've committed, and if you're not a lawyer, look it up online, see exactly what you've been guilty of, and then think if you deserve to die for that. Police would handle defendants with outstanding warrants for petty misdemeanors as sign and release instead of arresting them. Cambridge Republican Brian Johnson says it would not have made any difference in the case of Dante Wright, who had a gross misdemeanor warrant. There you go. It's unfortunate that he didn't comply and just go to jail, and things would have been a lot different. But it's easy to be Monday morning quarterback. Wow, way to go.
Yeah, he just didn't comply, so he deserved to die. You know what I mean?
In case you were wondering, comply is a word that keeps getting used over and over again in the short distance between two strangers.
Well, you're bringing up all these, misdemeanors and traffic violations as reasons for why people get pulled over. And this also happened in, where was it? In Virginia, to a army officer, right? Same thing happened. He didn't have plates on the back of his car. So he was pulled over by 2 police officers. So I have a little article here. 2 Virginia police officers have been sued for allegedly drawing their guns on a uniformed army officer during a traffic stop and spraying him with a substance. They don't mention what the substance was. One of them has since been terminated. On December 5th, 2020, Windsor police officers Joe Gutierrez and Daniel Crocker pulled over U.S. Army Second Lieutenant Karen Nazario, who is black and Latino, while he was dressed in uniform, according to the lawsuit filed April 2nd. They pulled him over in a newly purchased Chevrolet Tahoe SUV for not having a rear license plate, according to the lawsuit. Nazario was returning home from his duty station at the time, the lawsuit said. So, I guess basically what happened was he pulled over into a well-lit gas station.
Sick son of a bitch.
Yep, and they said he was not complying and that he didn't pull over fast enough, and it turned out that he actually had just bought the car, so he hadn't even gotten his permanent plates yet. So he had his cardboard temporary plates taped inside the rear window of the vehicle. So he did have his plates there. And there's a point where he says to the officers, "I'm honestly afraid to get out of the car." And one of them says, "Yeah, you should be." They then threatened to arrest him for not listening to their orders to get out of the car and for obstruction of justice. And he said, "I'm actively serving this country, and this is how you're going to treat me." Seconds later, they sprayed him in the face.
As Isaiah Bradley said, they will never let a black man. They might let a Batman be Captain America. I'll work on drawing that. But he said they will never let a black man be Captain America. And what's more is no self-respecting black man would want to be.
Luckily, he didn't die, right? So
yes.
he kept his life. One of the officers was fired. But, the fact that he had to go through this for what sounds like a mistake on the police's fault, right? Like they didn't notice the cardboard plates in the window. And they escalated something that was very minor to a major situation. And I feel like, police are constantly pulling you over for traffic violations, right? Speeding or expired plates or, missing plates or whatever it is.
Yes, there is a quota to get, by the way. James
right,
has confirmed.
there is.
He's confirmed that there's a quota and that they've pulled people over. He said just because their car didn't have air conditioning. He said, yeah, the precinct has air conditioning, so when we arrest someone and see if they have an expired license, we can take them in, and now we get to be in the air conditioning. That's literally what a cop told me.
Wow.
That was probably his first year or 2 on the job. And I don't really give a shit about saying his name out loud because he has a an excessive force charge against him, which you can also find online as well. So I really could not give two shits about calling these people out.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, there you go. And it's like they use it as an excuse, and
you
it's
can't
really
upend
dangerous.
people's lives for your convenience. Like that's sorry, you can't do that. But yeah, sorry.
Well, they can. Unfortunately, they can.
Yes.
And
can.
it's they've gotten away with it for how many years, and sometimes just being black is enough for them to pull you over and make up some fucking story about why they pulled you over. They can get you for the littlest things, and they'll use it to escalate it, which can and many times end up with someone's death, and it's just fucking unbelievable.
I want to delve a little bit more into that idea, because you and I obviously see it as you were pulled over for being black. The crime was being black while XYZ, right?
Okay.
And I know that. I agree with that. I think that it kind of excuses something a little more complicated, though. And I also know, I'm not necessarily sure if I'm trying to convince conservatives of anything. I don't even know if any of you fucks listen to this podcast. But if you do, or if you're one of those people who's always on the, if you're a liberal or whatever, you're like, oh, well, this person did have a gun, blah, blah, blah. Here's the idea. No police officer will ever shoot a person and claim, I shot them because they were black. I arrested them because they were black. They will say, I arrested them because they were committing a crime. Well, like I mentioned in the last episode, when you have an entire group of people who are enslaved for 400 years and then put out into the world with literally no resources or any of the opportunities to be a contributing member of society, which was very purposeful, because now you get to arrest those people at 3 times the rate that you arrest others and lock them up, and then you get to continue using them for slavery. That's how our criminal justice system works today, and that's how the prison industrial complex works today. But the over-policing of certain groups, mainly like black and brown people, is the problem, because you obviously that's why they are being over-policed. But if you're a cop going in there, you're going in there saying this is a crime-dense neighborhood. Every person I see here could be a potential criminal. Right. Because you don't fucking live there. You live in the suburbs. You commute to work. You go there, and so that's the thing. You may be thinking to yourself, "Listen, I just think that everybody should follow the law, and if people follow the law, then this wouldn't happen to them." But that is not the case. The law is specifically built so that way certain people are targeted by it.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing, is like not necessarily that every cop is a racist, but the system is racist, and I think that's what people don't seem to wrap their head around. Is literally designed to hold down and basically take advantage of people that aren't white, right? Like we've mentioned on the podcast many times that slave catching was the original kind of role of a police officer, right?
Yeah, an American police officer. Yeah, that's where
that's why they were pretty much invented. So since its birth, its inception, it's always been a racist system. So no matter how good of a person you might be, whether you're black or white or whatever, as a police officer, if you're doing that job, then you are serving a very corrupt and racist system. And like you said, maybe you're going into a neighborhood and you're not thinking, hey, all black people are criminals, but you're thinking everyone in that neighborhood is a criminal, and it just happens to be all black people, which is what the system wants. So we can't break it until we come to terms with that, and so many people just don't see it that way or haven't been able to, and it's just going to keep happening, right? The police need to be reformed or abolished. We can't keep going the way it is.
Yeah, you really can't. But what I will say is this, Ty. The Ku Klux Klan may be bad, but I think I might be able to join them and change the system from within. What if I'm a good Klan member? Can't I change the system from within?
It would be worth trying. Give it a
logic,
shot,
right? That's what I feel the logic is.
Yeah, basically.
We're not going to read every article, but we will put every article in the show notes. We do want to talk about Andrew Brown Jr., Elizabeth City, North Carolina. This is after what happened, but the black man who died during an attempted arrest in North Carolina last week was shot 5 times, once in the back of the head, his family said Tuesday. Less than an hour after an independent autopsy concluded that the man, Andrew Brown Jr., 42, was killed by a bullet in the back of his head, the FBI announced that it was opening a federal civil rights investigation. So, yeah, they've confirmed that this execution was so bad that the FBI is going to have to take over and in order to investigate. We will have details on the specific incident in the show notes. We are running a little low on time, so just wanted to throw that out there. There's also a white Fort Jackson soldier, Sergeant First Class Jonathan Pentland. He was an Army non-commissioned officer, and he was shown confronting a black man walking in his Columbia, South Carolina neighborhood in a viral video. He's been charged with third-degree assault and has been suspended from all instructor duties. The charge is a misdemeanor, and Pentland faces a fine of not more than $500, 30 days imprisonment, or both. And He randomly accosted a black kid who was walking in his neighborhood. His wife filmed the whole thing thinking, I don't know how you can film this and be like, we're the good guys here. Let's
she's like, people are going to love this.
Oh, my God. Man.
Yeah.
I thought of some really weird shit. But anyway, yeah. So
that happened.
So that happened.
We also have 16-year-old Micaiah Bryant, who was killed literally within minutes of the Chauvin verdict. So there's body cam footage of a police officer arriving at a scene. She has a knife. She does look like she's going to attack one or two other girls that are also black. And so
I believe that she had called the police because of the
they're not sure. They're not sure if it was her or someone else. It's kind of been going back and forth.
There was an altercation, and Micaiah was the one who had a knife. The deadly
so she had
weapon known to man. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So he shot her to death. And listen, one might be able to make the argument that he was protecting someone's life, right? She had a weapon, was going to attack another bystander, so he wanted to save her. But how many times has a white person with a weapon not been killed and been able to be arrested peacefully, like school shooters, right? People who have just murdered, countless people have been able to be brought in alive. Yet
Kyle Rittenhouse is doing fine.
But this 16-year-old girl, had to die. And maybe if there weren't, 20 black people in the media being murdered by police the same day, people would be more accepting that the cop really was trying to do his job. But since, everyone knows that these cops are just killing people left and right, it's kind of hard to really, sympathize with him and feel like he did the right thing. So 16-year-old girl is dead, who may have called the police herself.
Doesn't stop there, Ty. Knox County District Attorney Charme Allen said Officer Jonathan Claybow, God, the whitest names we're getting here, was justified and acting in self-defense when he fatally shot Anthony Thompson Jr., 17 years old, at Austin Magnet High School on April 12th. During a Wednesday press conference, Allen released surveillance and body camera footage showing Claybow firing 2 shots, killing Thompson and injuring another officer. I'm sorry, that's fucking ridiculous. So he fired the shots and actually hit one of his coworkers. You got to be fucking kidding me. The officer was Adam Wilson, and he was shot in the leg. So, apparently they responded to a call
Biden would be proud
or something. Biden would definitely be proud. I mean, I'm more proud because it was a cop that got shot in the leg. But man, you already got the lieutenant in Virginia. Last thing I want to talk about cop-wise. A First Nations chief who was arrested violently by the police, and what he's doing moving forward from there. It says more than a year after his violent arrest by RCMP officers in northern Alberta was caught on video, there has been no resolution for Chief Alan Adam. And guys, this is going back to our Indigenous stuff. Remember, we didn't just do a month on them. And remember, during that month, we said that problems that face our community in general face the Indigenous community like 50 times more hardcore. So, they were the original people who were beaten by the state in the U.S., or I should say on the North American continent. So the First Nation chief was arrested in the early morning hours of March 10th, 2020, after a Wood Buffalo RCMP officer in Fort McMurray, Alberta, pinned him to the ground. It was 2 letters. I don't know why they had to shorten Alberta. Pinned him to the ground and beat him, leaving his face bloodied. It was not justified for them to come flying into me and start beating me up for no reason, he told Cross County Checkup. Adam was later charged with resisting arrest and assaulting a police officer, but the following publication of dashcam footage determined that was a lie. No, because of that, the charges were dropped in June 2020. Without that video, which triggered such public outcry and initiated an ongoing investigation by the civilian-led Alberta Serious Incident Response Team, ASIRT, Adam says he believes he would have ended up in court on the charges. Adam has yet to speak with ASIRT, saying that if someone gets assaulted or somebody assaults someone, it is up to the RCMP to conduct an investigation. But 13 months after Adam's arrest, no one has been charged and the investigation is still open. I'll leave it there. Despite the fact that there was body cam footage, and despite the fact that there was some sort of accountability held for for Derek Chauvin, body cam footage doesn't mean shit, as we damn well know. And I just want to close out on the police brutality thing by making a few points. Regardless of what we see in movies and TV shows, police aren't supposed to be badass gun-toting cowboys. Okay?
What?
I know, and I'm sorry to tell you that, because when we see it on TV, a lot of times it looks cool, but even...
I've seen Lethal Weapon and Die Hard, and I think you're wrong.
Everything seems fine. I watched 22 Jump Street yesterday, and even those incredibly inept cops, I was like, is this propaganda? Even then, like everything I watch has been tainted by this point. But we see it, right? We see cops most likely killing people in all of the stuff we watch because it's entertaining. We love to see the bad guy get his just desserts. But what we're forgetting is that there is a justice system for a reason. People get arrested. They're held accountable in a trial by a jury of their peers after hearing the case, and they make a fair verdict. It is never a police officer's or employee, or whatever you want to call it, law enforcement officer's job to execute someone. It never is. And when you look into how they are trained and look into how they are defended, that system has continually been perpetuated. And I think part of it is just to keep us scared. We've said this before, I've never seen a cop on the side of the road and been like, oh, thank God. That being said, a while ago, one cop did help me fix my tire, but
well, there you
he was
go.
a state trooper. But yeah, sorry, what did you have to say?
No, I was going to say, just like Nick Frost said in Hot Fuzz, cops shouldn't be judge, jury, and executioner.
Exactly
right?
True, and you shouldn't be looking for proper action and shit. So, if someone comes out with a knife, why didn't he have the taser? He showed up ready to fucking shoot someone. Why didn't he have the taser? Why is a 25-year veteran, who is clearly severely undertrained, making the mistake of using their handgun instead of a taser? And point is, if I were Dante Wright, I would have fucking run away too. Who knows what's going to happen to him? Who knows? You saw what happened to Khalif Browder for not even stealing a backpack. You're going to tell me that this guy who has a legitimate warrant out for his arrest, isn't going to run? It's the police's fault. It is your fault at this point because everybody is afraid of you. You refuse to change the system. And that is why the common people that you are, quote unquote, charged with serving and protecting do not feel served or protected by you. And if you are a good cop right now, it is your job to speak up. And that's just how I feel about it. The guy who got pepper sprayed, so many boots to lick in that scenario, right? You got the army, you got the police, which boot to lick? The guy who got pepper sprayed, what broke my heart about it was that he said his dog was in the back and that his dog started coughing from smelling the pepper spray that was just unleashed in the car. Like, you can't have fucking professional wrestlers whose first instinct is always going to be going to violence. No offense, I know it's scripted violence. Always going to a fight as soon as they show up to something. Why is that the case? Nobody feels protected by you. And the people who do constantly make excuses for you murdering people. And they should be holding you accountable. Shame. Ding, ding.
Yep,
shame.
I'm waiting for a cop to accidentally use his taser instead of a gun. And be like, gun! And they're like, I meant to use my gun. And they're like, see? Anybody can do it.
I want to see the interview. It's like, yeah, so, I don't know. I was in fear for my life. It was a really tense situation. And the guy had a banana. I didn't know what he was going to do, so I go to pull out my gun, and I pull out a taser. I gave him a heart attack instead of killing him. Oh, God. Like, that is what I could see that interview looking like. And actually, I have one more last bit on that. I'm sorry, folks, but once again, this justice system, it's not set up so you can randomly kill people. I mean, on paper, it's not. It's not supposed to be set up that you can randomly kill people and then all of a sudden go, oh, well, they were guilty of this one thing I wasn't 100% aware of. That was the George Floyd thing, right? Like, y'all aren't understanding what misdemeanors are or what crimes are. And when you have seen people with their bare hands storm the Capitol and attack police officers and not get shot, one person? Like, the control is
cops
there.
are supposed to be executioners, then why don't we have the death penalty in every state anymore? Right? Like, there's a reason we got rid of it, so we don't kill people anymore. People aren't supposed to be murdered. So, there's really no excuse.
And while and obviously the death, you and I were talking about this, the death penalty is incredibly cruel for a multitude of reasons.
Yep.
But there's also just people in there that don't belong there. There are people who will be proven, innocent by DNA a year from now. And you want to just be like, if you commit a crime, you should get murdered. I drank under 21. I shouldn't get fucking murdered.
In America, right, you're innocent until proven guilty, but that's not true. That's what they say on paper, but the truth is that if a cop says you did something, everyone thinks you're guilty, right? And that's why we put people in jail and make ridiculous bail amounts and et cetera, et cetera. You're not really innocent until proven guilty. At any moment, all it takes is a police officer saying you did something and your life's over, whether they kill you or put you in prison or bankrupt you. So that's the country that we live in.
That's very well said. And maybe it's because I like the movie Armageddon, right? But wouldn't it be more simple to take people who are crisis counselors and those who do have empathy and train them to be police, train them to do like the fight and violence stuff, so that way it's like their last resort and they don't want to do it, instead of training the people who definitely want to kick some fucking ass to quote unquote de-escalate situations?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's easier, but anything is better than this, guys. Anything is better than this. If you dismantle the police and allow every... I know this is a terrible idea. Don't do it, obviously. No one's listening. But if you dismantle the police and gave everyone in the country either a gun or hand-to-hand combat training to protect... Like, I feel like we would be better off in our own hands. You know what I mean? And it's a terrible thing to say. But for me to be like, oh, I'm not going to commit a crime against that person because who knows what could happen to me? Like, I think that's simple enough. But even then, people commit crimes out of desperation. Like, we're acting like most people who commit crimes they just love doing it. They just get off on crime. No, there are a lot of people who end up committing crimes because of the desperation. What the fuck led a 13-year-old boy out in the middle of the night to allegedly have a gun? I don't know, but I feel very sorry for that kid. And there's nothing in his hands. Why are we shooting him? Why are you showing up afraid of a fucking 13-year-old? Why are we putting a bunch of pussies on the police force who can't make these distinctions? What? Distinctions. There we go.
There you go.
All right, Ty. Close it out with some Biden bashing, baby.
What? No, I don't want to bash Biden. I just want to talk about Biden. I want to talk about our president. Real quick.
Let's talk about this guy then.
I'm going to go into this with an open mind, and I hope you do too. We're just past his 100 days in office, and I want to kind of talk about what he's accomplished, what we'd hope that he'd accomplish, and what maybe we'll see in the future. I don't know. So, just in general, before we get into specifics, how do you feel about Biden's first 100 days in office?
I'm not impressed. I will admit that I've kind of fallen into the complacency of just like, all right, if I'm not seeing it on the news, it's not a big deal. But
yeah,
he hasn't done anything to wow me. The vaccine rollout hasn't been great. When protests were going to happen, he said, let's protect property over people. I even, I've seen a headline here or there saying that he wants, that he may continue the border wall construction, and that they're are also plans to build another quote unquote immigration housing facility.
Right.
Which, is a concentration camp. It's like calling something a police-involved shooting. You hear any mainstream media outlet say police-involved shooting, and you can't take them seriously because they mean a cop fucking killed someone again. But so I think that's my. He's done nothing to impress me. I'm not glad that he's just not Trump. Okay, let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I think what was touted in this election is like the election to end all elections, right? Like we had to get the fascist out and the socialist president, communist in, as Republicans like to say.
You went from liberal media to right wing media in one sentence.
I know, it's great.
Brilliant.
Thank you. And so here's the deal, right? Joe Biden's in office, and he's done a few good things. So I'm going to start with he reversed the transgender military ban. That's great. That's awesome. I'm glad he did that. Very good, right?
I too am glad that now trans people can die for oil as well.
Exactly, yeah.
It obviously was discriminatory practice, and I have seen something on Stephen Colbert. No, not Stephen Colbert. Who's the British version of him? John Oliver. I saw something on the John Oliver show, and this was probably 4 or 5 years ago at this point. That there were trans soldiers in Afghanistan who were able to get their reassignment surgery through the health program there, and then also felt more at home overseas in Afghanistan with a bunch of fucking jarheads, murdering people around them than they felt here at home,
Jesus.
So at least they'll be able to go and feel at home because things are, unfortunately, you're at more risk here, folks. Sorry to tell you.
So what else? He passed another stimulus, right? Like he promised, which was great. Money went to a lot of people that needed it. It helped a lot of people out. But there were some exceptions there, right? Instead of $2,000, it was actually $1,400.
I just got my letter for it today, by the way.
What do you mean?
I just got my letter that was like, I'm President Biden, and here's you. Biden doesn't sound like that.
He doesn't. That sounds like Bill Clinton.
Here, Mike, I'm President Biden. Sorry.
He also means tested it, and a lot of people were left out. Instead of people who made over 100,000, it was people who made over 75,000 now started losing money, and if you hit 80,000, you got nothing. If you didn't claim taxes, you got nothing. I was actually someone who didn't get the stimulus, unfortunately, and that was kind of a bummer. But I know a lot of people that needed it got it. But it just felt kind of like, why are you means testing it when Donald Trump didn't? I don't know. Whatever, he made it happen.
Wild. It is. And the thing is, you told me I didn't get it because quote unquote I make too much money. But I think most Americans still have negative net worths. Because regardless of how much you make per year, it's always flowing into other bills and stuff. There's relatively, no way to actually save and have anything that's substantial, because as soon as you get your paycheck, it goes to your college loans, goes to your rent, goes to your car, goes to everything else, goes to
health insurance,
insurance.
Utilities. The list goes on and on.
That's huge for people. Even with that, I don't care if anyone who makes more than I do gets money as well. Why would
it's full of stimulus. It stimulates the economy, right?
Obviously, the 1% I care about that, but they're hoarding it,
But that's a drop in the bucket for them. You know what I mean? To me, I'm like,
yeah.
But at 100,000, you're not really a millionaire.
Not at all. And nor would I sacrifice, I don't know. I just wouldn't sacrifice working class people for that.
Right.
Purpose.
And they also didn't take into account where you live. If you're making, let's say, $85,000 in North Carolina, it's probably a lot cheaper. If you're making $85,000 in San Diego, it probably doesn't go that far, and as someone who lives in New York, I can tell you that kind of money doesn't really go that far. Nobody I know that makes that money is considered rich or wealthy. They're still just kind of getting by. They're doing maybe a little better.
One of the best paid people I know, actually 2 of the best paid people I know, actually 3 of the best paid people I know, make that 4. 2 of them still live in apartments, and whatever. I grew up in apartments. I have nothing against them. I live in one now, but one of them is overpaying for an incredibly small apartment in the Upper East Side of New York City. Another couple who are doing pretty well for themselves still have been living in a condo that luckily, the father gave them, and even then they still keep getting outbid on all the homes that they want to get. Like, and then the other guy, last I checked when he was making 80, he's probably up to 100K. He's still living, in an apartment. So like, these folks aren't rich. Your average person has lots of debts to pay off and lots of things to consider.
I know. Me personally, I still live paycheck to paycheck. And it's I have enough to pay my bills, but anytime I splurge a little bit and I buy myself dinner or I buy a new comic book, it takes a toll, and it really hurts any chance I have of having any savings. But then at the same time, if you don't do that, you kind of fall into a depression a little bit, as silly as it might sound. Every once in a while you want to kind of like get a little something nice, and whether it's just going and getting a nice meal. But, and unfortunately it can be very difficult, and you need to make a significant amount of money to really escape that a lot of times, and it can be really tough, especially depending on where you live and your situation. But so that's one thing, right, about Biden. He did the stimulus. He also rolled out his vaccine plan. And I know you said that it wasn't great. And do I think it's perfect? No. But I will give him props. I was listening to another podcast, and they mentioned, what the difference was between Biden's, vaccine plan rollout and Trump's is...
Yeah, actually, you could tell me because I mean, I personally haven't seen any difference, but you telling me, I'm more than willing to alter it with new information.
So the difference is a little bit of structure. I think Trump's was more of, hey, we're gonna give I don't know, New York State this many vaccines. Good luck. Biden's was a little bit more structured. He gave a specific amount of vaccines out, kind of instructed them how to roll out the process. And it still wasn't, as far as I'm concerned, structured enough. I think it should have been a universal plan. Each state kind of rolled them out a little differently at different levels. But, he got, the patents, he got the vaccines, he had multiple vaccines ready to go. And so just a little bit of structure, just a little bit, right? Like I said, the bare minimum was enough to kind of make it a somewhat successful rollout. They're saying an estimate of nearly 50% of Americans are now vaccinated, which is, a pretty large number, since like 40% don't want it. So it's pretty good. Pretty good. But, I think that's great. At the same time, like you said, it's the bare minimum. I wish we could have done things a little bit smoother, a little bit quicker. It also kind of sucks that these patents are private, right? Countries like India, Peru, they are fucking suffering. Like, they do not have enough vaccines. People are dying. People are sick, and they really, really need help. I know it's America first, right? So we're really not concerned with helping other people, but that's capitalism. People want to make money off these vaccines. But and another thing is that the vaccines are free of charge. That's huge. Right? How are they doing that? How could you possibly give millions and millions of Americans this vaccine free of charge?
This socialist son of a bitch.
Yeah, right? It's like, wow, it's almost like a socialist, healthcare system. And I think that just goes to show that it's possible, that we could easily do it, but we won't. We just won't. They won't give it to us.
And that people want to be healthy.
Yeah. I mean, it polls great, right? I mean, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, people want healthcare. Like, that's like a universally accepted need. Everybody needs and wants healthcare.
Yeah, but I mean, the idea is that they wouldn't. Unfortunately, I don't see the Biden administration ever giving anyone, universal healthcare.
But the exit polls when Biden was running, I think it was like 60 or 70% of voters thought he supported Medicare for all.
How wild is that?
And that's all comes down to the media and how they warp it,
The right-wing media are the ones that probably helped him more. Probably. The socialist, protest-loving...
absolutely.
Biden sounds awesome.
He does, right? If you go based on what they're saying, he's like fucking Karl Marx reincarnated or some shit. Like, he's awesome.
Comrade Biden, baby.
Comrade Biden, where Bernie Sanders actually was going for Medicare for all. A lot of people thought Biden was. And that's just, it's pretty unbelievable that so many people believe that. Obviously, we didn't. We knew that wasn't true, and he will never support it. But That's beside the point. But yeah, it just goes to show we could give the vaccines free of charge. We can give healthcare free of charge. So, vaccine rollout has been somewhat successful. I'll give it a 7 out of 10 and and give them that. And where is Biden really falling down? I'd say everywhere else. Especially immigration, right? He said he was going to increase the number of refugees from the $15,000 cap to 125,000. And that has not happened. And then he said it's 62,500, and he's really nowhere near there. He has not been able to really do anything different than Trump. I'd say almost nothing is different about his deportation or his refugee facilities or any of the things that he said in his first 100 days he would take care of, that Kamala Harris also promised to take care of. We like you mentioned, they're building additional facilities and overflow facilities. They're trying to unite families, which is great, I guess, but I think they're uniting them in these facilities instead of just letting them go. And so he's really, really dropped the ball here. And it seems like he's really overwhelmed and doesn't really have a clear-cut plan for how they're going to fix this. And to be honest, if it's anything like the Obama administration, they're probably not going to fix it, and they're going to continue to deport at large numbers, and not really make things any better for people coming here seeking asylum. So that's a huge step in the wrong direction, but I'm not surprised, right? I think you and I both kind of knew this was coming, no matter what people wanted to say. And additionally, again, healthcare is dropping the ball again. We haven't made any strides here. Supposedly there is some eco-friendly bills that are being pushed forward, something not quite as great as the Green New Deal, but along those lines. But they basically know it's going to fail. They don't have enough support from Democrats, never mind Republicans. So it's pretty much dead in the water. I have a great article here, kind of just going over all the things that he's done and hasn't done in his first 100 days. So we'll have that in the show notes. But I think, to summarize, what I feared was coming has come to pass, and that was complacency. I think that so many people have now gone back to brunch, as leftists like to say, and they're like, hey, we got Mr. Great Biden is the president. We don't have to worry. We don't have to fight anymore. And that is probably the worst thing that could have happened, because I think under a fascist like Trump, as horrible as the things he said were, and as horrible as the things his supporters did, it lit a fire under them. It made them want to fight. And I think it, in many ways, actually was helping us push towards more left agendas that could combat that and make a real difference in this country. Pro-union stuff, healthcare, fighting racism, all the things that we really want to see come to pass. And I think under in an administration like Trump's, when the country's burning, we have to kind of look to what can save us. And like it or not, a lot of socialist and leftist policies are what will save us. But now that we're back under a liberal president, a Democratic president, people are just forgetting about it. It's back to normal, and he's going to continue pushing the 1% agendas on us, and we're going to be none the wiser. We're not going to care. A lot of these bills are thousands and thousands of pages long that are being presented, and most people do not read these, right? I don't read them. You don't read them. Most politicians don't read them. And in these, I'm listening to, there's a podcast with this woman who basically, she reads a bunch of bills. She goes through them like line by line, finds stuff that people are missing. She was on the Bad Faith podcast last week, and they're basically still trying to overthrow governments, and it's thrown into these bills. A bill that has nothing to do with that, but they're still trying to stage a coup in Venezuela and other countries around the world. These are the things that people don't know, that aren't talked about, but they're still happening. The amount of money that's spent, on the military budget is unbelievable. And there's even, I just recently learned this, that there's like a slush fund, basically, that is for not for military spending, but for like things that fall just like on out of jurisdiction of that. So it's kind of like a rainy day fund, and they can use that however they want. So let's say they get like 80 million a year for the military. They can also use the slush fund to help build more bases, to train more troops, to stage coups. So they have this additional money that we don't even know about because it's like redacted information that isn't told or really explained to the everyday American. So there's a lot of shady shit going on behind the scenes. And to me, Biden's first 100 days represents all the things I was afraid of, that we're not going to ever get any better because people are just going to think it already is.
But at least he's not mean on Twitter, dude. Like...
I mean, that's true. That's true, you know, and like one of his big campaign promises was that he was going to tax the rich. And, you know, he has increased the tax on the rich, and he's got a new plan that he was actually unveiling today. But, he might be omitting the estate tax expansion that he promised when he was running. And if, for those of you who don't know what the estate tax is, it's a levy of up to 40% on the richest Americans when they die. For 2021, an individual can leave up to $11.7 million to an heir, or $23.4 million for a married couple before the estate tax kicks in. So you can leave someone almost $12 million before taxed. And anything over that, they start to tax. It's a lot of fucking money, right? So an estate tax is a really
that's
great...
a lot of roads, a lot of schools,
yeah,
a lot of clinics.
And you tax that, that's a great way to take the pressure off of working people, on people who have so much money they don't know what to do with it. So he promised that he was going to raise that estate tax, and now he's not going to. So I think Biden's administration can be summed up by saying that he's going to work with Republicans and conservatives and the 1% instead of working with the left. And that's what they wanted. And that's why I didn't vote for him. So fuck Biden. You know what? I went into it with an open mind for 5 seconds, and then I realized that he's exactly who I thought he would be. So
God, Biden to you is like Falcon and the Winter Soldier to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wake up and I'm like, Biden, you son of a bitch.
But you're like, I don't want to spoil Invincible, but a certain character coming back and being like, Biden!
Yeah, yes, that's me. And I just keep getting my ass kicked by the U.S. government. I'm like, fuck, I just keep coming back.
He goes, here's the deal, Jack. Here's the deal, Mark. We need to talk. But yeah, dude, I mean, it sucks because Trump was a common enemy. He was someone that exposed all of the faults of our system that rewards entertainers instead of actual thinkers, and rewards celebrity over any sort of intellectualism,
right?
And and continues to help out the rich while disenfranchising the poor. Like he showed that, and he was that common enemy. But yeah, I don't know where we go now, because the media is just definitely on the conservatives' side. They always have been. They always will.
I think I'm at the point where like I kind of have given up on voting. I just don't think there's any way to vote in the right people, and even if you do, they're not going to get far enough, or they're going to turn into AOC, and
yep.
Which we really haven't gotten into much, but I think we were both big AOC supporters, and she's pretty much abandoned the progressive movement, as they like to call it, to support.
It's wild how holding politicians and elected representatives accountable is all of a sudden being mean to them and pushing them away. It blows my mind that's
it's just like, well, what are you supposed to do? Like, stop worshiping them, cult of personality, right? Like, I'm always been a big Bernie Sanders fan, but even I think on this podcast we've called him out that he's made some really bad decisions, right? We did not support him backing Joe Biden, right? That was a big letdown, and he really let down the movement. And I think calling these people out for that stuff isn't a bad thing, and it doesn't mean that you wouldn't support them if they did the right thing. But when AOC is saying that Joe Biden's tactics at the border are so much different than Trump's, and he should be applauded, and
fucking disgusting.
Backing Pelosi, it's just it's really it's not only disappointing, but it's just wrong. And if you call AOC out, all of a sudden you're a monster. You're a horrible person. And should you be calling her like a bitch or anything like that? No.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to be sexist to hold her accountable.
Not at all.
There are actual sexists, but there's also people like us who just want to hold her accountable. Like what? Like I don't know, man. Like if you can't trust AOC to say that kids in cages is wrong, who the fuck can you trust to say it?
Exactly. I mean, she got in on people power, as Ryan Knight always says on his podcast.
Yes.
She really was the epitome of a leftist politician running, and she beat an incumbent, and the odds are stacked against her, and she spoke out time and time again against the establishment. And it's just like little by little they've beaten her into submission, and she is very clearly on board with the Democratic Party at this point. And Bernie Sanders still does some great things. I think he's probably gotten more progressive policies passed than anyone in government ever at this point. But he's still willing to play by the rules. And to me, I'm like, after they screwed him 2 elections in a row, and he again was not left enough, but he was, we were willing to go to bat for him in the hopes that we could get things moving in the right direction. So it's pretty obvious to me that we cannot do it through the political means that they want us to, right? Through voting and stuff like that. It's just too corrupted. So I'm not sure what the next step is. I hope we fucking protest again this summer. I hope we put their backs against the wall and really show them that we're not going to accept less than what we deserve, because there's a lot more of us than them.
And if they have an issue with that, we can fucking handle it.
Yep.
The people know what the people want. The working class is all... There's a reason the Soviet symbol is a hammer and sickle. They're fucking builders and farmers. And we have so many incredible people in the working class who could run this country better than those who are born with a silver spoon in their mouths. So just keep that in mind. Last thing I want to say is last week I said that terrorists kill innocent people to achieve a political means. That doesn't make any sense. The means is killing people. So terrorists kill innocent people to achieve a political ends or a political goal.
Yeah.
Goal. Just wanted to put that out there. So if you're like, this guy sounds like an idiot, you'll. At least today you'll be like, oh, it sounds like a bit less of an idiot. And just it kind of ties into Falcon and Winter Soldier. It kind of ties into what you were just saying what we were just saying is that when the woman asks him, so what, the governments are just supposed to take care of the people? Yes. That's why you're elected, you motherfuckers. Let us do it then. If you won't let us, collect our own rain, grow our own crops, provide our own electricity, provide our own transportation, you're going to gut public transportation so we all have to get cars and go in debt and ruin the environment and shit. Like, if you're not going to let us do any of those things, then yes, it's your job to take care of us. Do not be surprised when we emancipate ourselves. And I meant that more like the Drew Barrymore way from her parents, or like somebody emancipating themselves from abusive parents, and less like, seceding, which is what the South did.
Oh, boy, yeah.
Although, if we could get enough money, together, all of us, folks, buy a plot of land, it could be in this country, it doesn't have to be, and just, make a community, a commune, that would be awesome. I'd make sure it doesn't become a cult because we're not super religious, but we'll figure something out. But next week, we return with our first episode of Batman Month. Bat Month, as I like to call it, starting just this very moment. We will be reviewing Sean Gordon Murphy's Batman, White Knight, and Curse of the White Knight.
Yeah.
And Curse of the White Knight. Okay, just making sure that we're doing both of those. So if you haven't read those stories from Sean Murphy, they're both comic books. Definitely get to it. Find your local LCS. That's local comic book store for the uninitiated. And also redundant, because local LCS means the same thing.
Find one, yeah.
Get your books there. Get it online. However you get it, read it, because it's really great stuff. And then we'll figure out what else we're doing for the rest of that month.
Yeah. We recently reviewed his Punk Rock Jesus, so if you were interested in that, you liked what it sounded like, and you read it, you probably like his Batman story as well.
Mm-hmm. A lot of speaking truth to capitalist power in that one. But in the meantime, in between time, folks, catch us next Friday on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. Remember that on Apple Podcasts, you can rate and review us, leave us a 5-star review, subscribe as well. You can find us on YouTube if I feel like uploading any more videos. You can find us on Twitter at PolitiPopPod, Instagram at PolitiPopPodcast. I update it once every couple months. You can email us your thoughts or whatever you feel like emailing us, compliments at politipoppodcast@gmail.com. As always, find our show notes and sources at politipoppodcast.wordpress.com. And a special thanks to all of you listeners. You have made this this past month pretty awesome as far as numbers goes, folks. April has really I don't know, just spiked back up when we, when we hit
when you needed it the most.
yeah, just like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Yeah, so y'all
just
are
don't
awesome.
make it an April Fool's and keep it going through May. Come on.
Yes, please,
who doesn't love
please
Batman?
do. Exactly, and for the Politipop pod. Oh wait, no, I forgot. Special thanks also to Antonia Chava for logo design, whose cat is doing better and in recovery. So everyone, cross your paws, cross your beans, cross your toes of your fingers. Let's send positive vibes to Antonia's cat. And for the Politipop podcast, I have been Angry Mike Booch.
And I have been Ty.
No matter what you're watching on TV, no matter what you're thinking about it, no matter what you're reading with, the bullshit mainstream media headlines that you see, please never stop thinking, never stop learning, and always remember to read between the lines.
And scene.
That it is.
I was looking at the lights.